Welcome to today's webinar, our second in a series of webinars under the umbrella of coaching and leadership development. I am your host and speaker for today. My name is Bashar Faouri. I will introduce myself a bit more in a moment. Today, we're here to explore the intersection. Even though for me, it's more than an intersection, but we will explore that a bit further today, the intersection between leadership and coaching. At some point, they do intersect, and in my opinion, to a very large degree, where this meeting point, this intersection of both, if we will look at how people or leaders, when they come from that place of intersection of leading, but also coaching, when they come from that place, the impact is very effective on organizations, on people. And also looking at how both complement each other, or perhaps how coaching complements leadership more so. So if somebody is a coach is working with someone, they also develop that leadership area that intersects and even beyond that. So the intersection is a very interesting one, and it is one that I've been very curious about. We will have about 45 minutes to explore that together and see where we land. Surely we will hopefully discover some insights for you and give you a little bit of information about ourselves and the coaching that we do as we go through this agenda. All right. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. All right. So a little bit about me. My name is Bashar Faouri. As I said, I'm the head of coaching here at Kaplan Professional Middle East, based in Dubai, but currently calling you from Amman, Jordan, which is where I grew up. This is my hometown, born and raised. I had the coaching vertical at Kaplan. Like I said, my role is to get coaching to more leaders, more people in organizations as much as possible, and to also make sure that the quality and the impact that our clients are looking for is achieved through the right tools. In this case, coaching, but also part of what we do is we integrate a lot of our solutions, be it coaching, be it training. We integrate them together to create a unique experience for learners, be it leaders or early managers or juniors. We work with people at every level of the organization, and our aim is to elevate people's skills and their development through these tools that we have. Kaplan Professional Middle East is part of the Kaplan umbrella, and we're known to be an education pioneer across the world, and now expanded in the last 10 to 20 years into corporate developments and leadership developments and coaching. And we have many offices across the world in many different cities. And in the region, our offices are in Dubai and in Saudi. We work out of Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and Riyadh. We established a headquarters in Riyadh very recently, even though we've been operating in that market for quite some time. But it was time to set up a headquarters there, as many companies are doing. And yeah, so this is a bit about us, a bit about Kaplan. Surely you will be directed at the end of the call to our websites to read a bit more about us if you're unfamiliar, or at least about our behavioral and leadership development programs, because everybody knows Kaplan for being, at least in the region or in Dubai, as being a technically sound and technically competent training provider. That's our niche that was kind of indirectly created, but we are much more than that. People know us for the CMAs and the CFAs and our exam preparation, but we do much more than that, and hopefully you can learn a bit about that in the end. So let me continue to ask you here, where are you calling from? Give us in the chat. Now we have Nisarg and Mehul. I hope I'm pronouncing your names correctly. Apologies if that is not the case, but please use the chat to let us know where you're calling from and perhaps what is your role? What do you do in very short? So just location, and I see your names, so it's a pleasure to have you with us. Let us know where you're based and what you do in the chat. And if you want, tell us a little bit more about what you hope to gain today. You might come here with a certain expectation, something you want to walk away with. I will try my best to make sure that you get that. And if not, then we will find a way to get you as close as possible to what you're looking for. So, well, welcome, Mahul and Sarg. I see HR, health and safety. So kind of more or less maybe closer to HR roles, which is a lot of our clients, we work with the HR departments in many, many cases. However, sometimes we do work directly with the stakeholders, with the leaders, with the high-level executives to work on a solution or a coaching program for their people or their early managers, whatever the case may require. I see, Mehul, I guess this is your wish for today. What you'd like to get is how do you build organization capability for building wholesome coaching culture? Good question. It's a very good question. And this is probably, we can talk about it for hours. Hopefully today I can get the chance to touch on that a little bit and speak a bit about it. However, it is good to know that this is an area of interest for your organization or your team. We can definitely explore that further, if not on the call, then outside of it. Brilliant. So today, what we're going to cover, like I said earlier, maybe some of you missed what I said. We are going to explore the intersection between coaching and leadership. We're going to see how leveraging coaching in leadership makes leadership and the impact of it highly valuable and much more effective for not just the people being coached and led, but the organization and the culture. And how leveraging or how developing your leadership through coaching is also one of the most impactful or positively impactful tools to develop your leadership. So that is what we will explore. We'll talk a little bit about coaching. Some of you might be familiar with it, some of you maybe less. So I'll try to not go into too much depth, but also not too little depth, so that you're not left wondering as much as possible. But please, again, use the chat. Let me know if you have any questions as we go. How can I become a good coach and trainer? Another good question that I love to talk to people about. And this is something perhaps that we can talk about as well at the end when we do the Q&A, or even outside. We're more than happy to connect with anybody who's curious about coaching and how to make the most of it. And you might get a bit of your answer through the next hour or less than an hour that we have together. All right, time for a poll, a quick one, but I believe you've already answered one of these questions. In any case, you will answer the second one since the first one you have already answered, or most of you have. So can I get your answers to this poll that I'm about to launch, just to get a feel of who we have in the room and where you are in terms of your familiarity with coaching. All right. We're getting some responses. managerial and supervisory level. So my guess, correct me if I'm wrong, please, that some of you already have team leading experience. You are already managing people, even if it's one person or even if it was in the past. My guess is that you are already doing that or you've done that before. So that will be good to know. And good for you from your perspective to see how coaching can help in leading people, developing people, and so on and so forth. Hello, Marios Orlas or Faurlas. However, I hope, again, I don't bash these names. I am trying my best. Hello, hello. All right. So the poll, I think, for those of you coming in is still active. So I'm going to keep it for another 30 seconds or so and see. Just looking to get a feel for where you work, what's your level in the organization, and how familiar you are with coaching. Lovely to see that there's some that have worked with a coach. So direct experience is always different. We can always learn about something theoretically and learn it at a very good level, but it is very different once we start to experience that thing from the inside. So most of you are quite familiar with coaching, which is great. Hopefully I can add a bit to that familiarity and also open some avenues for how can this be helpful and where. Awesome. Well, I'm going to close the poll in just a second. We've got a few that are managing supervisors, probably with people reporting to them, some individual contributors. So a good mix. All right, closing the poll, and we will have another one in a moment. But until then, let's talk a little bit about the difference of being a leader. Sorry, let's start with what does a manager do? Where are you on the spectrum of managing people? Some of you already are on that spectrum, while others maybe you might speculate or forecast, what type am I if I were to manage people? The spectrum on the left start with, I'm more of a teller. I tell people, I am very good at giving advice. I instruct people what to do. I'm good at that. That's naturally how I manage teams or people. Or the other side of the spectrum is I use coaching, more inquiry-based, asking open questions to help the other open up more of their clarity for them and find their own answers. So the farther you go towards the right, you'll start to meet pure coaches like myself, like people, certified professional coaches that work as coaches. You'll find them at the very far right sitting, and they rarely venture into the left side. Sometimes maybe, but that's where we sit as coaches. We coach one-to-one, we only coach, and then if we work as mentors or if we work as managers in organizations as well, which I do as well, I use, of course, mentoring. But when I'm coaching my clients, I use the right side of the spectrum, or I'm somewhere deep on that right side. The left side, some people sit also on the very far left, and they're just telling people and advising people. They're good at that, right? However, nowadays we see a surge in leaders becoming better at utilizing different toolkits in their leadership, right? So, or even managers, maybe you wouldn't consider them leaders, but in my opinion, everybody leads. Everybody leads in some way in certain instances. Everybody has the capacity to lead, at least. Even some people might not or choose not to or are afraid to or do not like to, but everybody has the capacity to lead in a certain way. So with that said, let's assume that everybody is a leader. Some leaders, again, do the mentoring. They are good at telling, others are good at inquiry, and some mix both. In organizations, you see more and more of that because leaders are expected sometimes to cut through. They don't have time for coaching and inquiry and reflection. In some situations, they might not have that time. So they end up using a shortcut of just giving advice, mentoring people, telling people how to get from point A to point B in the fastest way possible. So there's no ideal, but our conversation today will argue, I guess, and will make the case that leaders that sit on the right side of the spectrum, that are able to deploy both, but sit more commonly on the right side with a coaching toolkit always available and ready and utilized, they are much more impactful towards their people development and leadership development of others, and as themselves, they keep developing as leaders. So that is where I will be, that what I will be promoting here. My message here is that coaching leaders are some of the best leaders out there, and I will make the case why. So I also will make the case that coaching and leadership are related. They're siblings. I truly believe that they are inherent capacities and capabilities within every human to be able to not necessarily be a coach or be a leader in a typical sense, in a position sense, but everybody has the capacity to use the toolkits and the techniques and showing up as a coach to other people, and same thing to lead other people. The reason why I say they are siblings is because I think, and I believe actually, that my cursor keeps jumping. But other than that, I want to invite you to look at them as well as siblings, because each of them has a different purpose. Yet there is so much common between them, and they complement each other like siblings do. They support each other in a way that fuels leadership. Coaching fuels leadership, and leadership is grown and developed through coaching as well. So imagine one sibling is great at driving things forward, making difficult decisions, critical decisions. And that sibling is also good at influencing others. They're naturally able to influence people towards a common goal, towards a decision, towards a direction, and to influence them towards following the person, right? The leader. And they communicate very clearly. They always communicate with a compelling and inspiring way and a vision. I wonder, which sibling am I talking about here? Is it clear from this short description? Whereas the other sibling is great at active listening, powerful questions, sends you into your mind and opens up spaces for you. This sibling is a great listener, does not judge or criticize, always holds the space for you, but will also be painfully honest and invite you to be your authentic self, to be comfortable, whatever you come with, good, bad, failure, or success. I still see you the same way. That's the other sibling. Can you tell the difference? Who's who? I'm curious. Which one is the coaching sibling and which one is the leadership? Is it the first that I explained or the second? Now, and one thing also that I want to mention is that coaching is not, and a lot of people will say this as well, you'll find it, a lot of people make this case, is that coaching is not a new principle. Thousands of years ago, Socrates alluded to this ability people have, that everybody has the inherent capacity to learn by themselves. Of course, not when you're an infant, even then you're able to learn by yourself. You're looking, you're observing, you're making sense of the world. So Socrates spoke of this thousands of years ago, is that he said something along the lines, I'm paraphrasing, that if you leave a person to inquire and go deep into a train of thought without interrupting it with instruction, they definitely have the capacity to learn so much by themselves. As long as we don't interrupt them with that advice or, no, do this instead, or here's the right solution. People are able to get to their own sufficient solutions. Nisarg, second one is coaching. You are correct. That is true. That is true. I'm guessing you're the one who worked with a coach, since you're familiar with that. Whereas leadership, although I've used here the picture of John Maxwell, who is not the founder of leadership, but maybe a modern day um, um, role model and thought leader in the topic of leadership. But I use his picture here, interestingly enough, is because even him, as the pioneer of, one of the pioneers of leadership, or a leadership empire that he created, he is now a coaching leader. All of the successful, many of them at least, and the pioneers of leadership have adopted coaching as an integral part of their leadership. And there is a reason for that, which we touched on and will continue to hammer as we go. So I'm speaking from the outside about coaching, about leadership. Let's look at them a bit closer now. What is coaching? Because I got the feel that some of you have not experienced coaching or not very familiar, a bit familiar. I'll go through this quite quickly. And there's a reason why I want to go through them, because you will get a poll in a moment that is related to this. Coaching is a developmental process. And the key here, emphasis is about it's a process, just like some argue leadership is, but we'll get to that in a moment. It's a process. It's not a fix. It's not a one-time solution. It's an ongoing process of development. And that is very important to remember. Coaching skills are not necessarily a process, even though they might have a process within each skill. To utilize that skill, you might use a process, but as an overall coaching is a process. When I come to coach you, Nisarg, or I coach you, Marios, I will follow a process within every session, and also as an overall process of behavior change over a 6 to 12 month period. That is also a larger process. That process is about guiding, and I use this word cautiously, because some people think guiding is holding someone's hand and telling them where to go. Others would think of guiding as you're just, directing them, telling them, hey, look, is there something here that you need to be aware of? What's here? What's behind this door if you knock on it, right? It's more of a less hand-holding approach of guidance. So in this case, it's the latter. It's the coaching is you don't necessarily tell people where to go and what to look for. Even if you do, it's placed at a specific time for a reason within the coaching process. And ultimately, why? What kind of guiding process is this? Ultimately, you want people to feel empowered to gain more of their potential, achieve more of their goals, but also the person that they wish to be, for them to reach that. That's why it needs to be an empowering process where the person starts to believe and see what the coach sees. Is they see a larger human, they see a person who's capable without all these limiting thoughts, and somebody who's able to achieve all they want to, right? In recent past, I have often heard contrasting views when managers and leaders are used interchangeably. Absolutely. Bharat, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. In the recent past, I have often heard contrasting views when managers and leaders are used interchangeably. All leaders can be managers, but not all managers can be leaders. I guess that's what you meant. Yes, I must agree with that. Managers are not leaders, but they're capable of being leaders, and without labeling good or bad, or how well or how often. The great leaders are able to lead all the time, and it's a way of being for them. Just like coaches it becomes a way of being of them being with other people, always about championing them towards their highest potential, inquiring rather than telling them. So good leaders, it becomes for them a way of being. There are leaders also, sorry, I used good leaders. The most effective leaders are those where it becomes a way of being everywhere, and some of them are naturally good at that or are born with that inherent trait and capacity or competency, while others need to develop it and might, reach a manager level often without leadership skills. I was there actually, and I got promoted to a supervisory level and a director level with very little leadership development, or even, to be honest, I didn't know what I was doing in terms of leadership. So that's when I took a step back and started developing it through coaching. But also that's when I fell in love into coaching and started pursuing it as a means to improve coaching for others as well, to improve leadership for others as well, because I realized there's a big, big gap that I fell in and that many, many other managers fall in, and they struggle, to be honest. So, Bharat, I hope that answers your question. More on that later, perhaps. So I won't go into detail on the right side, what the coaching process is, for the sake of time. The point is to make is here, it's a development process. We will contrast it and see how it overlaps with leadership. All right. So ultimately, where coaching can be helpful, not just in leadership development, which is part of my case here to make, and it's not only my case that I make, is that coaching helps any person develop their leadership potential and capacity, because as a process itself, it's letting people figure things out with support, but not support that, like Socrates says, that disrupts their own intuition, their own creativity. So that process in itself, which is inherent in coaching, whether it's leadership coaching or just purely life coaching, helps people lead their own lives initially, lead them own selves. And that's the foundations or the starting points for developing leadership for others or leading others, right? So, all right. Some examples of what coaching skills or tools might sound like, and then I'll ask you a question to get your opinion. So one of the reasons as well why it is highly impactful for leaders and for people to develop leadership competencies, because it uses skills such as these. These are not the exhaustive list of skills. There's many, many skills and tools that coaches use. And some of them are just created on the spot sometimes by coaches, because it is all about creativity and creative, innovating in the process and innovating with your clients. But for the sake of now, these are some of the skills. The powerful questions are always open and help people expand and think differently. And they're questions you don't often ask yourself. Active listening, we know what active listening is. It's listening deeply, listening to understand what the person is going through and what the person is expressing, and being even more curious. That's and relaying what you're hearing, right? That is essentially what active listening is. So it creates that feedback loop. I'm listening, I'm deeply listening, so that if something, and usually there always is something to be curious about, if there's something I can ask about, I'm asking the questions to go deeper and deeper and deeper and sharing what I'm hearing as I go. So in a way, it's like I'm holding a mirror, like this picture implies, in front of anybody, the leader, the manager, to learn more about how they think, how they view themselves, how they view their situations. And with that comes self-awareness, emotional intelligence, better articulation, and so on. And then there's reframing, is the coach is helping the clients reframe their thoughts. It's like, I'm hearing you say that you're having trouble with you're having a challenge with your line manager that is about 1, 2, 3. It's reframing the person's definition of their challenge or their statement in a different way, just to see, is there more insight here to be had? Is there another way of looking at it? Of course, mirroring I mentioned as well. One thing is important in coaching is using your intuition, and unfortunately, many of us suppress that, and with a lot of advice giving from the outside, the intuition becomes something that we don't have access to as much, or we don't use. It's a skill, it's a tool that we all have as humans, and sadly, we don't use that, or many of us don't use that often. Coaching helps people tap into that more and more, and making it part of the toolkit of you as a leader. Not always relying on things making sense, but sometimes that nagging sensation that this can work, or this direction is better for us, that will start to hold more value for people who are coached. Visioning and visualizing, not just visioning that leaders do for organizations, which is creating a vision that people will want to follow, an inspiring one, a clear one, and knowing what their role and how they are fit into that vision, but also visualizing the exercise of creating visions for yourself, or creating images for yourself that start to make sense of your situation, of your challenges, of your goals, and using that to help you develop and overcome, challenges and achieve goals. Visualizing is a powerful tool, which coaching helps you utilize more and more. Of course, there's accountability setting, that the coach it's part of their role is to make sure that they're holding you accountable, is that you're holding yourself accountable and championing you always along the way to remind us, because we all need these reminders that, hey, we're playing at this level, but actually, if we were to be brave enough, we should be playing at this level. That's what championing is all about, is the coach is always seeing you as a client, as a leader, as who you are at your fullest. Yes, we all have our bad days. We're not always performing at our best, and that's okay. But at least it's not giving people excuses that we tend to give ourselves for performing less, or for not living up to our potential, and etc. The last one I speak about here is one that's very important, I think, helps leaders be aware of this ability, or this tool, which is relationship design. It's about creating agreements as soon as you are about to work with someone, in this case, coach and client, is to design how you're going to work with each other. What agreements will form the basis of our relationship? Well, one being confidentiality, right? That's an assumption, but we coaches and clients talk about this, and coach starts asking questions. What is this? What are these agreements mean to you? How do you want to show up to this relationship so that we can be at our best and work with each other in the best way possible? So relationship design can be brought to leadership as well, as you're designing with your team and with your colleagues and peers. All right, so we're in the office, 40 hours a week, some of us maybe 50 or 60, and we're going to work with each other for a while. How are we going to work with each other? This skill, or perhaps it combines in a few skills, in creating agreements, holding people accountable to them, clarifying what those mean, questioning and inquiring. All these create an agreement for people to work with each other more consciously, without falling into assumptions or pitfalls that can be avoided. So that's an excellent tool I love in coaching. Maybe it's not necessarily a coaching tool, but it's very much used in coaching. All right. Opinions, since I've been rambling for some time. Beautiful people, I will take you to another poll now. I'd love to hear what you have to say about this. What aspects of coaching do you think would be most beneficial for leadership development? Is it the fact that you get personal growth as a whole human and you become self-aware through coaching? Or is it the fact that you develop skills like communication, like giving feedback, like listening, like articulation, like setting goals? All these are skills and competencies that you develop in coaching. Is it that? Or is it the fact that coaching enhances your communication and feedback, like I just mentioned, or helps you set goals and achieve them? Or is it the fact that coaching helps in emotional intelligence? Which of these do you feel is would be most beneficial as an aspect of coaching, would be most beneficial for leadership development? I love that we're getting various answers. Getting various answers, or we're getting various answers from the same people. But I don't think that should be possible. I think everybody has a single choice. All right, so we have people who've selected personal growth and self-awareness, goal setting and achievement, and emotional intelligence. I mean, we know all of them are true. All of them are part of or aspects of coaching, and there's many more. Um, and all of them are beneficial for leadership development. But that question was which one is the most? So some of you have voted as I explained now. Um, in my opinion, it's a combination of these. If I were to choose, there aren't numbers out there, or at least there are numbers that I'm going to share with you that says, well, it's this one or that one. However, personal growth and self-awareness is becoming much, much more important these days for leaders because there's a clear separation between a manager who thinks they're leading, but they have very little self-awareness and they don't work on themselves and develop themselves, and someone who's doing that as part of their routine, personal growth, development, learning, reading books, self-awareness, talking to people, being open to 360 feedback and peer feedback and all that. This is an essential part of effective leaders these days. And coaching leaders have this as it's necessary. They want this. They thrive off of this. I would argue. Brilliant. All right. So now we talked about coaching, and then um, I'm looking at the time, and we're going to talk about leadership a bit, and then perhaps we get to the last poll and maybe some time for Q&A. All right, leadership, similarly to coaching, is a commitment to a process or a commitment to a practice, just like coaching is a commitment to development. But here, I add this in as a commitment because it's ongoing. You cannot be leading and then one day decide not to. It's a commitment of showing up as a leader, for your organization, for your team all the time. Sometimes you show up differently though, but you have a long-term commitment to that leadership role, right? So it's a commitment to the ongoing practice or process, some people say, of guiding and influencing others, individuals to perform better, to achieve their goals, essentially. And as I said, some people argue that even leadership is a process, maybe a more if you zoom out very high, you'll find that there is a process of some sort of creating a vision for people to, whether that vision is an organizational vision or a vision for the team or for the individual, is creating the vision and telling the person or people, here's what I see us, where I see us getting to in a couple of years. And here's how I see you're going to be an integral part of that vision. And here's how I imagine you to be when we get there. So that is establishing the vision, right? And it could be at different levels, like I said. And then engaging and empowering others is engaging the people involved. And that's where the hard work comes into play because it's consistency over a period of time, making sure that people are motivated, people remember the vision. So constant communication, and people are communicating their challenges that are standing in their way. And creating the environment for people to be able to communicate that is even more of a challenge for leaders and executives and organizations, is that you can establish a compelling vision, you can make sure that everybody's engaged and everybody's doing, working and working sometimes long hours, but doesn't mean that they're effective hours, right? So you can be doing all that, but the culture of the environment doesn't make them feel like they can express, oh, I have a problem. oh, I have an idea, but it sounds very silly, and maybe it's an award-winning idea. So if you don't have a culture built by these leaders within the team or within the organization to communicate honestly, then the process falters at some point or diminishes. And then the last one is facilitating that change. We're at point A here. We're going to get to B in 2 years, and that vision is making sure that you take people on that ship, right? You're leading your entourage, you're leading your crew towards that, and there's also a lot of work to do, a lot of business, aspects to look at. Hiring, salaries, or back to the motivation bit, making sure everybody's getting what they need in terms of support and development, and so on. So it is a process, if you think about it that way, but I like to go with practice. It's like leadership is you're a practitioner of leadership, and you're doing it all the time. Now, the main role of coaching in leadership, in leadership development, which we kind of touched on in that poll question, is to facilitate awareness and raise the responsibility of a new manager, an early manager, raise their awareness and responsibility, but also keep providing them with that mirror, right? Which helps raise awareness, but also it's giving feedback is hey, leader, you keep saying that you're gonna you go to the gym and get your health in order so that you can show up to your team in a much more positive manner, but you're not doing that. What's up with that? That's constructive, but also maybe a bit challenging feedback. It's like a tough love type of thing, which the coach is always happy to give. But also, it's not just leaving the person or leader in that position. It's also working with them through that and finding development opportunities, areas, or skills that will help overcome this challenge. And then obviously, right, it helps people achieve their goals, whether they're development goals. If you show up as an executive, as an early manager, as a supervisor, and you have your own goals to achieve, some of them are business oriented, some of them are development for you, and some of them are development for your team. The coach's role is to help you in getting closer to all these goals, clarifying them as well, because sometimes we have these goals that look nice on paper, but we don't know how to get there. We don't know what it looks like to get there, and what that means for us. So, but with that said, there are leadership competencies, specific ones that are developed through coaching. There's many, but I'll show you some. And then I'll love to get your opinion for the last time today, probably, in the poll, in which ones you think are the ones that coaching helps develop the most, especially since some of you have experienced coaching. But here they are. So emotional intelligence, we know, is very important for leaders to know how they're impacting, how their feelings are impacting them and others, and same for others, understanding how others people's emotions are affecting them and their motivation, and being able to read that, making them more socially intelligent. Communication and feedback obviously is a very important part of leadership. And then making critical decision making to be a leader that drives things forward. Decision making needs to happen quite often and become easy. So these are competencies are made easier through coaching, because coaching is inviting you at every second to be making choices. What do you want to work on? Where do you want to go? How do you want to get there? What will you lose if you don't get there? Why is this important to you? You're just constantly making choices and decisions, which makes the decision making an easy skill to be developed, or more developed. Resilience and self-management, you're raising your ability to deal with setbacks by working on developing your growth mindset and a learning mindset. Is no matter how you did in your achieving your goals, you come back to the coaching and it's about what can we learn. So you learn that the small losses or big ones, once they're in the past, they're just a learning process, and that grows your resilience and your ability to manage yourself. Conflict resolution, obviously, when you become much more emotionally intelligent and able to manage your own self more, you're able to come to situations that are heated and that are of conflicting nature, and to resolve them with the right skills and of course tools. You're able to let go more. That's maybe back to your question. I think Bharat, it was you, or maybe it's close to it. Once you're a manager, managers tend to hold on to their expertise like it's all I got. Like my studies, my technical abilities, this is all I have, and that's just one of the signs that a manager is a manager. And the shift towards leadership is to let go of that need to know everything and to be the expert at that one thing, and to be an expert at managing people or leading people and resolving conflict and communicating and all these things. So that's what we see, and you'll see that is a good indicator and a shifting point between a manager and a leader. Somebody who's able to delegate and empower others to say, you go figure your stuff out. Come to me if you have a challenge, and you need to take on this responsibility. It's not my responsibility anymore. Letting go is a good sign that leaders are focusing on their primary goal, which is to coach and develop others, right? Part of leadership, as I said, is inherently part of it is coaching. I think it should be, I believe, because you're developing other leaders. And how do you develop other leaders? One, by role modeling, but other ways is by coaching them, because coaching develops, like I said, leadership competencies. So let's hear it from you in this last poll. What do you think about this? I'm not sure. Okay. And this one, and start this one. There's two questions here. Which leadership quality do you believe benefits the most from coaching? And which coaching skill, tool, or technique do you think would be the most effective in improving leadership skills? Similar questions to what we've asked, but different. And I hope you noticed that. Let me know if you have any questions. We've got 8 minutes left, just to give you a quick update, and I want to leave some time for Q&A. I hope that it is desired, so I'll leave time for that and for a chat if you wish to talk about coaching. All right, we've got another of answers are coming in now. I'll leave it here for another minute. And then once this is over, ladies and gentlemen, I'll share the results briefly. I'll close the poll, and perhaps then we can unmute and have a Q&A. I'm not sure if we'll have time to cover my last bit, but a Q&A will be useful nonetheless. So we've got few answered here. Okay, I think we have most answers. I'll just give it 10 seconds more. So what we have so far, question 1, which leadership quality do you believe benefits most from coaching? So if emotional intelligence, we're saying, is an important leadership quality, some people agree and think, well, few of you, the lesser of you think emotional intelligence is the one that gets impacted positively the most. The most of you think decision making and problem solving gets impacted positively the most as a leadership quality through coaching. Again, it's I hate to say to break the news, but it's all of them. It's all of them. But which one is the most? We can argue about that all day. And each of us will have its different opinion. I think it really depends on what the person wishes to develop as well. That would create even more drive and go with the learning even further. As for the second question, ladies and gentlemen, which coaching skills, tools, techniques do you think would be most effective in improving leadership skills? Most of you said active listening and inquiry, whereas some of you, a few, thought articulating and bottom lining. Both very important tools, and they're used in coaching at every instance almost, because you're always communicating and articulating your feelings, your thoughts, and your ideas. But also being able to bottom line, right, is very important. Is you don't find leaders that are just talking, talking, talking. You know, they want to give you a compelling vision and they talk for hours. No, they know how to bottom line. And coaching invites people to bottom line all the time. So both, again, as all these skills are very helpful for leadership development. My take on this is that meta view is very important, because another thing that managers tend to do is they zoom into very small details. Whereas when you get coached and you develop yourself and you become more of a leader, you are able to zoom out and see big picture. So I think that's a very important skill and helps leaders big time, or at least transitioning leaders or managers transitioning into leadership. Alrighty, so unfortunately, I won't have time to share with you the last few slides, but that's completely fine. We were going to talk about, can coaching leaders drive organizational growth? In a way, it's also questioning, is coaching just about people's development and it becomes, about developing personal side of things and people as people? Or can coaching also help organizations create and deliver better results eventually? And the answer is yes, of course it can. And there's cultures and cultures of organizations that are moving towards coaching cultures. You can look that up and what that means and what it looks like. And those cultures are the highest performing ones. The end results are always innovative, creative. There's always transformation happening in the organization. The people are working and collaborating very successfully. So sure, unfortunately today I'll give you the short answer is yes. But maybe we'll see you again in the in our next webinars and dig deeper into more angles in coaching and how it relates to leadership development. For now, I'll pause, and perhaps I will pause the recording as well for some Q&A, and I will be here for a couple of minutes if you need me to. I have the time, so feel free to shoot your questions. Let me pause here, and if you decide to leave, that's completely fine. We thank you for being here, and hope to see you again.